Can AI bring customers to your restaurants? Hello, I'm Jonathan Mays, Editor-in-Chief of Restaurant Business, and in this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, we continue our examination of AI's impact on restaurants. This week, Joe Guszkowski looks at AI in marketing.
When Khara Mangiduyos and her husband opened their restaurant, Kalei's Kitchenette, in 2023, artificial intelligence wasn't part of their business plan. But then Mangiduyos discovered ChatGPT, and suddenly she had a marketing assistant who never slept. Since then, she's learned how to train AI to write her social media posts, generate emails, and respond to customer reviews, all in the voice of her brand. And she's not alone. Across the restaurant industry, marketers are finding AI to be a useful tool, not just for creating content, but also for analyzing reams of customer data to help inform marketing decisions, or provide a more personalized experience for customers. I'm Joe Guszkowski, Senior Editor at Restaurant Business. On this special episode of A Deeper Dive, we explore how restaurants are using AI to take their marketing to the next level. We start with Mangiduyos, who was an AI novice when she began using ChatGPT at her Hawaiian restaurant back in the spring of 2023.
So at least in the beginning, I was like, create an Instagram caption for Kalei's Kitchenette, and I will give the background of the business. I want it to be, again, the parameters of whatever social media, how many characters it is. I will talk about the tone. And back then, even though it created an output, which is the copy, I still need to revise it because it's not quite our tone. And then, so it helped, but I'm still doing some work. It felt like I'm still doing some effort, right? And then so, sure, but I will still take it. At least there's not much brain damage that's happening. So I will continue to schedule, create the artwork, the reels and whatnot.
Though ChatGPT is shouldering more of the workload in Kalei's one-woman marketing department, the process is not entirely hands-off. Mangiduyos still has to make sure her restaurant's social media posts sound like her restaurant and not a robot.
I think it's a time saver and also a buddy to brainstorm and collaborate. So we cannot rely on ChatGPTs to do just flat. You still need to humanize that. And that's what we're afraid of. That's why people are afraid to use GPT. They are just starting points because you still need to humanize and put it on your brand tone, your brand voice. Because for us, we don't say good morning and good afternoon. We say aloha. And if I see a good morning, good afternoon there, that automatic is not me.
But ChatGPT has taken a lot off Mangiduyos' plate. She estimates that it's saving her anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week. And even though it's generating most of the content, she says the AI has allowed her to be more creative, not less.
One thing that I feel like people don't realize, and yes, we save time, right? So what are you going to do with your time? That opens up a creative space. Now, you actually allowed yourself to have more ideas. Maybe now you can analyze content that didn't work before. You're not just pushing out content. Now you can analyze and go back and say, hey, that special actually did so well. I'm going to double down on that. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. And again, what can I create? It's always like, what can I create? Just repackage it. Maybe that people are already buying it. They like it. I don't know, just to spruce it up a little bit and it will maybe track a new traffic that you would want.
That's just the most basic example of how restaurants are using AI in marketing. AI is a good content creator, but it's probably an even better data analyst. And that makes it particularly useful for marketers who depend on data to shape campaigns. Want to know whether last month's LTO was successful or how many loyalty members redeemed that promo? Just ask AI. That's one of the goals of Data Assistant, a new AI chatbot tool from analytics provider Bikky. Here's co-founder Abhinav Kapur.
The three things that I think restaurants are amazing at and that their superpowers are making, serving, and marketing the food. Those are the three things that you are non-negotiable and you have to be exceptional at. There's a lot of things in the restaurant business that go into understanding how good you are at those three things. And I think AI can chip away at a lot of the manual work involved in understanding if you're doing a good job in those three domains. One example that I like to use is we actually talked to a brand yesterday, CMO of a 50 or 45 unit brand. Her CEO asked her, hey, we have breakfast. We launched breakfast a few years ago. How many guests have ordered breakfast more than once in 2025? It's a super basic question, right? And a super, I think, reasonable question. For her to actually do that, she would need to involve finance, involve, IT, to pull the data, run the spreadsheets, crunch all the numbers, and then maybe a week or two later, she has an answer. She was able to just use Data Assistant and type that in and say, how many people have ordered a breakfast item more than once in 2025? And she got the answer. And then she was able to say, what's the most popular item ordered in our breakfast day part in 2025? And she got the answer. And then she was able to go build a marketing campaign to figure out how to drive more breakfast sales or more sales at the breakfast day part. And so I think that ability to, again, talk to the machine that has all this rich context under the hood, get the answer, and then make a decision. That's the most important piece. Make a decision independently without needing to pull in other stakeholders. Again, you're going from insight to action to result in literally days as opposed to, weeks, or from what we've seen, a marketer asks an analyst on their team a question and they get an answer a month later when the campaign impact doesn't really matter and you're already off to the next thing.
And in most cases, marketing has been kind of a languishing function where like people spend a lot of money, but they don't really know what to do with it.
This is Krishna Gupta. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of Presto, a company that provides voice AI for drive-thrus. He believes there's an opportunity for those bots to help restaurants refine their marketing by testing different messages in the drive-thru and tracking how they influence ordering behavior.
And so a simple thing is like, imagine every month you could change the message that you greet your customers with, right? And it could be tailored by that month or whatever, or situational in the world. You today, and you could maybe even decide that message the last day of the month prior, right? So one day before the start of the month. Today, there's no chance you could do that. You would have to somehow come up with that message and then train, thousands of minimum wage employees to deliver that in a consistent, perfect way in the first hour of their shift and the 8th hour of their shift. And just even thinking about that kills the idea, on the brainstorming table before it even goes anywhere. With a system like ours, you can, write 2 lines of code to change your greeting of put it out in the wild, and ideally get a bunch of demographic related data to close the loop a week later and have that. And you could either change your message by the second week of the month or use that data to feed into your message of the month next month. And you can do all that without having to train a bunch of people, right? So just one small example of like all the things that are possible that people don't think about, right? Going back to the influencer thing, it's like, okay, I'm going to use some famous TikToker. I'm going to put her, even maybe put her voice in the drive-thru and offering the burger, right? Is that appealing to males, females, neither, both? How many of that kind of burger or that kind of special am I buying and selling, and what hours of the day? I mean, imagine how much data you could have. But none of that is possible today, right? None of that.
So we've talked about AI as a content creator and AI as a data analyst. Now, if we combine those two trains of thought, it raises some intriguing questions. For instance, what's to stop AI from making marketing decisions and running campaigns on its own? If I pull into an AI drive-thru and the system recognizes my license plate or my voice, could it create a special experience just for me? It might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's basically already been done more than a decade ago by Sonic Drive-In. Way back in 2009, the chain began an effort to digitize and integrate data across the entire operation, from its mobile app to its on-site ordering and POS system. And that unlocked the ability to use AI to offer personalized promotions for customers who pulled into one of its drive-ins. Here's Craig Miller, who helped spearhead the whole project back then.
In the case of Sonic, we had a very unique service model. And so we leveraged that. And so we have the ability to connect with customers off-premise now through these digital channels, and we have the ability on-premise. And so in this integrated ecosystem, we leveraged our ability to drive awareness and to drive engagement, to bring them in. That would drive traffic. Once they came on lot, we had the ability to take that connection with that customer, and we digitized the experience in the stall. So we had a digital stall, which allowed us, and on average, the customer was in the stall for 11 minutes on average. So now we had the point of sale in the restaurant, the digital stall connected, mobile device eventually, and all connected to the way in which we kind of drove them in. So as we developed more of a profile of who you are, and if we knew who you were, we would use AI to essentially, as you started to order, we would be able to adjust the menu. We'd be able to adjust the potential upsell. If you chose this and that, you probably would want, this kind of dessert. In addition, while they were in the stall, we really leveraged that 11 minutes to continue interacting with them in a very non-intrusive way that would either learn more about them or drive them before either they left to say, hey, how about this dessert before you leave? Or, when you come back, here's the promotion for, 10% off your sundae you drink when you come back. So we had the ability to target the promotion, target the engagement, but it required us to make sure we had those touch points to be able to do that. When we did the test for the digital stall, our test markets, 9% comp. Well, comp in terms of those test markets versus non-test. So immediately, just with that. Now, as we started to really roll everything out, is we saw that 9% come down, but we also started rolling out technology on the bottom line to do predictive with AI, predictive labor management, predictive inventory management. So we started to really drive a margin. And I forget what the number was, but what we targeted was we were going to take our labor costs down by 4% and our inventory costs, I think, down by 4 or 5%, which we did as we rolled it out and as we changed the behaviors and the practices. We started to see that occur.
So if Sonic did all this 15 years ago, why haven't more restaurants done it? Especially with the leaps AI has made over the past several years.
I'd say the inflection point was mobile and the cost of digital. Yeah, I would say I was doing this with banks, right? Because you had screens for ATMs, right? And every business model is different, but technically it's been possible for more than 20 years. It's just now one constraint back 20 years ago was cost. And so the cost of things have come down. We were challenged by that with our franchisees and our operators, but we got very creative on how to make the economics work and how to create the business case. Because, I'll give you an example. When we put the digital stall, when we were prototyping it, this is back in 2012. And it was very expensive. And everyone said, we can't afford it. It's never going to pay for itself. And I knew if I had the ability, I could use AI to upsell. And so we built a prototype only to prove the business case. And our business case was, if we had this digital device in the stall, could we drive average check by 3 or more %? And this was, we called it the ugly duckling because all it was a digital screen that allowed us to, interact, that we could put content, that we could drive an algorithm to it. And we proved the concept first. And in fact, we were 5 to 6% in the test market. So then we said, okay, can we expand that? Once we expanded that and we proved, then we had to make adjustments. I'll give you one great example. It shows you the interaction with the customer. We found that the products on the right-hand side was actually driving more volume than the left, which we said, how's that? People read left to right. And what we found is in this digital panel, we had the speaker on the right, okay, and we had the mic on the left. And when someone pulls into a stall, you hear, "Welcome to Sonic, can I take your order?" Well, people's attention goes immediately to that speaker because that's where they're hearing it. And so they started reading left to right. And that's not the way our menu was structured. So we just flipped it. We flipped the speak. But if it wasn't for our testing and fine tuning that prototype in order to achieve my 3+%, right? Then once we had that, then we started to scale it.
As someone who was at the forefront of AI in restaurants 15 years ago, I wondered where Miller saw the technology going in the next 5 or 10 years.
There will definitely be far more targeting of consumers to drive awareness and bring them in. And so all of that will continue to evolve. Does that mean there won't be any humans? I don't think that's the case. As a matter of fact, here's where we have to be careful. It is automated ordering. McDonald's and others have been working on for a couple of years. The problem is it works technically, but the accuracy of it is not good and it's not a great experience. So it's not ready yet. And so whatever it is, as it evolves and it becomes more and more part of the immersive experience, the marketing experience, the operational experience back in the kitchen, back of the house, you never want it to compromise the integrity of whatever your brand is or the customer experience. That's what'll throttle it. Yeah, there'll be more partnerships and interactions with it. There'll be more streamlined engagement outside of the restaurant. So it'll be more of an evolution, certainly, than kind of what we have today. But I still don't believe that there won't be anyone in the restaurant, connecting with the customer.
And that should do it for the latest episode of A Deeper Dive looking at AI in restaurants. Next week, Joe Guszkowski and I wrap this up with a discussion on how AI will change the industry over the next few years. And that should do it for this special episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Spoons. Contributing to this podcast series has been Restaurant Business Senior Tech Editor Joe Guszkowski and Senior Menu Editor Pat Kobe. Kimberly Pelican helped with the artwork. You can find this and other episodes of A Deeper Dive on our website at www.restaurantbusinessonline.com/article/deeper-dive. But please subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.